Good evening, ladies and
Hello.
gentlemen. Welcome to the Chatroom. Hi, Lua. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Barry?
All good. All good. All right. So we are excited
What?
about tonight. Um, right. So we're excited about tonight, and I can't wait to dive into tonight's topic. We're looking forward to tonight because of what we get to discuss here tonight, and it's something that involves you, something that involves me, and something that involves all of us. And we are excited to get this started. Lua, any thoughts? Okay, so I think Lua is having some slight uh, network challenges, but I'll kick this off by introducing us to tonight's topic. So tonight we are looking at leadership essentials, and our focus will be on what leadership essentials are most relevant for these times. And here, obviously, our focus will be to pick out key elements of that make up leadership, and not only leadership for our time, because as we know, times change, and we constantly move on a linear path where it's constantly in motion. And what might have worked yesterday might not be what works today, or maybe it might be. And that's what tonight is about. We get to look at that in depth, and tonight we have a very special guest. We are hosting tonight the visionary of Fingerprints International and the legacy leaders, and Ndashi Kapembwa. And Ndashi Kapembwa is an astonishing mentor, and he's had several years of experience in leadership, and he has two organizations that deal specifically with leadership and mentoring people. And we thought we would bring him tonight on this chat to speak with us and to interact with us so we can learn from him and interact with him in regards to tonight's topic. So, in just a few minutes, and that she will be coming along. But before that, Lua, can I just confirm, are you audible now? Okay, so I think it's not yet audible. So in just a few minutes, and Dashi Kapemba will be coming on, and I'll be able to see him just after this. Mr. Ndashi, good evening. Welcome to the chat room.
Hey, Barry, good evening. So good to be here. So happy to be here. Such a joy.
Wow, amazing. We're glad you made time to be here, and I'm excited to get to talk to you tonight, especially in regards to our subject tonight,
Good
leadership
evening,
essential.
Ndashi. Good
Yeah.
evening, Barry.
Hi, Wanda, we see you.
So, so
All
Anna,
right, all right,
good evening.
all right. So just to introduce you to our friends who are watching you on the chat room tonight, who is in Dashi Kapemba? Who would you say you are?
Oh, that is always an interesting question, and there are so many places that we may start. But first of all, I think the foundation of everything that I am is that I'm a child of God. I'm a child of God, and out of that identity, I have the privilege of being the visionary of Fingerprints International, as well as the legacy leaders. That's who I am. I'm somebody who's passionate about people, just bringing the best out of people, helping them to thrive in their God-given mandate. So Ndashi Kapembwa is a leadership and personal development trainer, a graphic designer, just a creative generally. If I put it in that sense. I'm an author with 6 books to my name. That's what I've had a privilege. Some of the things I've had a privilege of doing by the grace of God. But at the foundation is that I'm a child of God. That's who I am.
Wow, wow, amazing, amazing. That is wonderful. That is wonderful and
Yeah.
inspirational to mention. So to get into tonight's topic, tonight we're going to talk about leadership essentials. And I know you are somebody who's passionate about leadership and mentorship and empowering people in these specific areas. And perhaps before we get to talk about the definitions of what that looks like and what that means, I'd love to know what is your drive. You know,
Yeah.
why choose leadership? Why centering on that as a person? What made you decide to want to talk about leadership?
You know, there are a lot of things that I can really point back to, but I think at the foundation, it's also embedded in the design and the way that I have been made, and the inclinations that you have, that I have, that our viewers have, that are just based on how God has made us. And for me, during the journey of my life, leadership became something that literally I did not hunt down, but hunted me down. So it became something that I was exposed to every now and then, and there was no running away from that. There was no denying that it's a space that I needed to occupy. Now, with that, also you begin to then notice how leadership is being done, and that triggers you in a certain way. For me, I've always been big on integrity and seeing that. Whenever I see that missing in a leadership sense, it always triggered me. It always annoyed me, and so just instead of just being annoyed and upset, I had to start answering to that annoyance by providing what I feel is a solution to some of the ways that we lead. And that's what I've been doing on my path as a leader and as a leadership developer, if I may put it that way.
Wow. Um,
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. I love that, and I love the fact that you brought out the problem statement of something that you're trying to solve or contribute towards fixing in your initial explanation. And just before we go any further, yeah, talking about leadership. So how do you define leadership? What is leadership? What exactly is leadership? I think I would love to
Yeah.
know. Would like to know what leadership is, because it seems everybody has a different definition of what leadership is. And
Yeah.
is there one true sense of what leadership is, and what is that? What should we strive for?
Yeah. I think what we have are perspectives on leadership. That's why we can't really put that one thing, because we see life through different lenses. But if you're able to pick on different ways in which leadership has been defined by different individuals, ultimately it comes really to one box, if I may put it that way. But we do have different perspectives. And so for me, my perspective in trying to define leadership is the fact that leadership is responsibility. That's what leadership is to me. If for instance I'm not happy with the way that we keep our environments and the way that we treat cleanliness, if I may put it that way, as a nation or as a community, if I'm not happy about that, what is the next step that I'm going to take? If I say that we launch this campaign and we start addressing this specific issue, I'm not representing, but I'm taking initiative and taking responsibility, and that is leadership for me. It's the ability to see what is missing and take responsibility as opposed to waiting. And so that's a sense of leadership for me. And if I may put this as a parallel to what John Maxwell says, because that's another definition that I love so much. He says that leadership is influence, right? Nothing more and nothing less. He says that. Now, if for me again, if I think about that, and I think about if Barry, I meet you today, and maybe I sense there's something that you're sitting with that is yet to be explored, but can be so much more if only it was explored. And so for me, I start thinking about that, and I bring you into a space where maybe I start asking you certain questions, and for the purpose of bringing out the best that is in you. So what am I doing in that moment? I'm taking responsibility, and I'm getting that influence, to be able to lead you towards what I feel is a place where you really bring out the best out of yourself. So if you see his perspective, my perspective, and other people's perspectives, at the end of the day, they all have a way of working together. So it's not really about reinventing the wheel, but building wisdom on already laid foundations of wisdom, I believe.
Wow, amazing, amazing. And I hear what you're saying. As you were speaking, what was coming to mind now is who exactly is this leader? Who exactly is this person you are talking about? Who is a leader? And to put that into context, today we have over 7 billion people on the planet. I'd like to know from you,
Mhm.
how many of those do you think are leaders? Is everybody a leader? Where does leadership begin?
Leadership is a mindset. Leadership is a mindset. Out of the 7 billion that you have said, who has the leadership mindset? Whoever has the leadership mindset will lead. And the reason why I say leadership is a mindset as opposed to a position is because if my mindset is to blame others, then I will never take charge. And for as long as I have a mindset that blames others and I have that inability to take charge, then it's hard for me to lead. It's hard for me to go in front of others, to give direction, to offer, you know, uh, perspective unto others. So out of everybody that is living today, whoever will have the mindset to want to make change, because what I believe as some of the marks of a leader is the holy discontentment, if I may put it that way. It's the unrest that somebody has that moves them into action. So I may not have a position, but if I have this discontentment that I'm sitting with and I choose to act upon that, that mindset is what moves me into leadership. It can be in an organization or it can be at home. Whatever the case may be, I don't need a title. I need a mindset. So obviously, we can talk about how developing one as a leader or developing the skills for one to use as a leader. But at the foundation, it's a mindset. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Okay, okay.
So we
So
are what we think. Yeah.
yeah. So leadership, and I'm following quite well. Leadership is a mindset, and out of the 7 billion people, those that are leading are those who have a different kind of mindset. Now I know mindset are definitely
Yeah.
created by our culture, by our environment, by our belief system, and all of that. So what I'm thinking now is, how can somebody know when they have that leadership mindset? When do you recognize, oh, I'm actually a leader? Can you be a leader without even knowing it, as long as you have the
Yeah.
mindset? If somebody's watching this right now and they're like, okay, so leadership is a mindset. Am I a
Yeah.
leader? Where does that begin? Do I need to become a church pastor or have a business to become a
Yeah.
leader or gain some position? Because today there's so much positional leadership structures. And if what you're saying is true, then how can people identify whether they're leaders or not?
You can identify that from as early as when you wake up from bed, right? Do you rely upon another voice to tell you to go, or do you rely upon your own voice? Because self leadership is the foundation of all leadership. So, do you have the
Yeah.
capacity to lead yourself, first of all? Do you have the mindset to lead yourself, first of all, without
Yeah.
waiting for anybody? Because that becomes the foundation. If I'm able to lead myself, then I can be a leader of others as well. So that's where we begin to realize whether or not we have the leadership muscle, capacity, or mindset. It's right from, can you lead yourself? If you're working for yourself, can you still exercise the discipline to do the things that are required to actually make progress? So it begins with oneself. Just the ability to
Yeah.
lead yourself, even before we talk about any other people. And it has nothing really to do with positions. You can be in a position and not be a leader, but you can be out of position and yet
Wow.
be a
Wow.
leader. So it's all about what we are doing, the structure of how we think and see life. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's as best as I can put it. It begins with self, really.
Wow. Well, amazing. Thanks for sharing that, and I have a couple of thoughts that are building up on what you just said. But before going on, let's just remind you tonight we're talking about leadership, and we are joined by Ndashi Kapembwa. He is the author of over 7 books, I believe, if I heard correctly, and he is the visionary of Fingerprints International and Legacy Leaders. Tonight, we're talking about leadership. We want to discover the leader in you. We'll be right back after this. Wow, amazing, amazing. I love the insights that are coming through. That are coming through. So we're talking about leadership, and previously you just responded to the question on where does leadership start. So today we have something. You in the beginning you pointed out a problem with leadership. You talk about integrity and things that you challenge you when you look at the leadership sector or leadership field that cause you to speak and to want to develop competent and good leaders. So I'd like to know what makes a good leader or a correct leader, if that is right, and what really differentiates good leadership from bad leadership. What is the easiest way somebody can know this is good leadership, and what is the easiest way someone can identify this is bad leadership?
Yeah. Mhm. Okay, if I can toss out just a few names at you, and then I can build off of that to answer this question. If I can just toss these names out: Martin Luther King, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, and the list can go on and on. But just with those names that I tossed at you, these are names that are easy to remember, that have been engraved in history. And the question that we may ask is, why do we remember these names? Is it because of how much they had or what they received? And the answer to any one of those questions is no, but it's because of how much they give. And from the foundation of what I said in terms of leadership being a mindset, what we then begin to understand is in what makes good leadership is indeed, again, the mindset. Because leadership is fundamentally about saving others. So we remember these people not for what they received, but for what they gave. So good leaders are those that have the mindset that is centered around providing a growth environment for others, that are centered around saving others, not saving self. Without this foundational thinking process, it is difficult for you to be an effective legacy leader, if I may put it that way. One that not to build oneself, but to build others, right? Thought or mindset in itself is what can be such a differentiating factor for who a good leader ultimately is, and who not a so good leader ultimately may be. And of course, there are so many other things that we can talk about, but fundamentally, that mindset I think is super critical.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Mr. Muzmara, I see you. Thanks for joining us again. I saw you making some gestures as Mr. Ndashi was speaking. And do you have anything to share, to ask, or add on?
Yeah, I'm so delighted to be here. Currently listening to my lead mentor at Legacy Leader. So the foundation of my leadership has been formed by Sandashi, and I cannot stop learning. And one of the things that for me, I really wanted to come on board and ask, although I'm constantly asking him questions, but I would love for him to answer this for the general public, is times of uncertainty as a leader. How do you posture yourself? What direction do you take mentally and in terms of your action when times are uncertain, the chips are down, and even you as a leader are feeling the pressure? How do you handle that in terms of your mental posture?
Mhm. Okay. And I'm so glad you asked that question. That's such a good question. The other aspect of leadership that is important for us to realize is that leadership is more effective when it's honest, right? If people can trust you when you don't know, definitely they can trust you when you say that you actually do know. And more organizations are moving into coaching type leadership as opposed to telling leadership. And what coaching type leadership does is that it actually engages the people that one is working with through asking questions to arrive at the answer. Because ultimately, it's not just the leader that has the answer, but it's everybody within the team. So everybody has a measure of know-how. So it's about, again, as a leader, to probe answers, not just for the sake of asking, but to genuinely ask others, what they think about a given situation. And so for me, my practice has been to be honest, even in those moments. If I'm stuck on something, if I'm working through something, to be honest with those that I lead, to say this is where I am or this is where we are, and actually this is what we are working through. And what are your thoughts on this? How can we work through this, right? So that level of honesty for me is super critical in those situations. And also the mindset that I always have is there's always a way. That mindset of there's always an answer, there's always a way, enables me to see possibilities. Because the moment I say this is stuck, then I've closed my mind from any possibilities that I can be able to see. So that has been my approach, and that is also something that I've seen through reading has worked for so many other people. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Not in line with what Lua inquired of, but here's something I would like you to clarify on. And I'm obviously still drawing out the problem of leadership, if there is a problem of leadership. Um,
Yeah.
would you, looking at today's world, and I want to talk about leadership in a very broad manner. I want leadership in a political way, in an organizational way, in a business way, and in every form of where leadership exists, generally around the world. From your observation and from what you've been saying, would you say we have a leadership problem? How would you rate leadership on a general scale? Are we doing it correctly? Is there need for alarm, for concern, for a wake up call when it comes to the field of leadership and people who are holding leadership, especially in a positional sense, because that's who we see the most of the time? I'd like to hear from you. What is your take on that? What is your
Yeah.
analysis of our current world situation on leadership?
Yeah. We do have a lot of people in leadership positions that may not necessarily be leaders, you know, because it takes more than a position to be a leader. So my general analysis is a fact that we do have a lot of people that are in positions, but when it comes to quality leadership, it is something that is still has to be a point of emphasis, still has to be a point of investment, right? It's something that we have to be so intense about. I have been doing leadership training now for the last 3 years, and one of the things that I have observed is this: I can throw out a free course in leadership. The response always amazes me because not only is quality leadership lacking, but the recognition of the need for leadership development also lacking. Just speaking from what I've experienced and noticed, it's it's sitting with unconscious incompetence where you do not know that you actually don't know something, right? So for me, that's what I've come to notice is just the fact that yeah, we do have a lot of these positions, but quality leadership. If you ask about people that are in employment, that are in corporate environments, how many people in those environments have found their psychological safety? How many people are saying, "Thank God it's Monday," and how many people are waiting for it to be Friday or for it to be 17 hours? So what is happening in those environments? How much psychological safety is there that people feel safe, that people feel can trust their leaders, that people feel that I can actually be honest enough when I'm making mistakes and not cover it up because I might lose my job. Do we have managers? Yes, but how many of those managers are leaders? Because those are two different aspects. So I think those are some questions and concerns and points of provocation that I can out there just to answer your question of what my thoughts are.
Wow, wow, oh, wow, amazing. I love the response, and I'm learning a lot from what you're sharing here, and I know our viewers are also getting so much insight from this. So there is a challenge with quality leadership. There is a challenge with quality leadership. What factors do you attribute to this? As why do we have this challenge now? And I'll take it, it's a growing challenge. So what is really causing this challenging quality leadership? And then I also like to know how you believe we can fix that.
It's investment. Fruits doesn't you only get from what you invested in. So how deliberate have we been? How deliberate are we about leadership investment? What we learn even in sort of times is, yeah, we do learn management. Nothing wrong with management. It's needed, very important. But how intentional are we about actual leadership development, and investment? For me, what I say is this: what we're experiencing today in terms of quality of leadership is a testament of the leadership investments we made 20 years ago, leadership investments we made 50 years ago. And what we are going to experience in the next 10 years, 20 years is going to be dependent upon the leadership investments we make today. So unless we become intentional, one of the things we've really been thinking about is how to take these leadership values and lessons to young people. And I'm talking about Sunday school age. I'm talking about preschool. How do we begin to put that in those curriculums, values that are going to help people, but by the time they're becoming CEOs in those kind of leadership positions, or just generally how they sit within their communities, how do they carry themselves? It's all about the investments that we made and the investments that we are making today. That is the contributing factor.
Wow, amazing, amazing, amazing. Lua, you want to share something?
Yeah, just thinking on the same, because it's a mindset and it has to be built. As he said, it's a process, so which means it takes it takes durations in which you are learning and taking yourself from one step to another. It's not something that you accumulate in a moment, but it's something that is learned through experiential knowledge and through also the investment when it comes to leadership seminars, personal development seminars. So it's actually being intentional about how much you want to know mentally, and also taking yourself in places where you can experience leadership. And so I think, as he alluded to, if organizations are walking into leadership with a posture of not having that hunger for leadership knowledge, it means they're working with so many blind spots. It means there's so many areas about themselves that they don't know. And sometimes we think it's negligence when they're leading, but it's actually blind spots. They don't know what they're doing, or they don't know what it is that they can improve on. So what leadership does, it reveals to you certain aspects that you may not be getting right, and it changes your mindset. It changes the posture at which you go into an organization. So as he said, the very hunger of going to your workplace on a Monday comes from the fact that you have learned that leadership is a fundamental aspect to how I'm going to walk myself through this week. Because if you're weak mentally as regards to leadership, even your posture reflects. Even the way you go into workplace, you're not per se going in there to lead, but you just get through the rest of the week and hope it's Friday so you can chill again. So I think that mentality, that mindset, as it's groomed, as you were saying, from an early age, really does a lot as regards to how you posture yourself when you're actually given a leadership platform. So with everything that has to do with the mindset, as I said, it's a building process. So it's one step at a time. And the question is, what steps am I taking now? Not just because I'm not in any leadership platform, but even as a result of leading myself, that will eventually lead to me leading on a leadership platform even better.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I just want to take a question from some of our viewers right now. And here we have a question from Kuaha. And he's saying, can everyone be a leader? It's a question really: can everybody be a leader? Is that possible? And if yes, I assume, how does that look like? So I'll pose this to Ndashi. Maybe you can share more on how you believe this can be.
Yeah. Okay, so can everyone be a leader? I'll answer this in a yes and no sense, right? Yes, because we are talking about leadership on different scales. So maybe if we're to break down this question, is in the mind of our viewer, I'm thinking, are we thinking about everyone being a leader in a sense of maybe at national level? So maybe we are saying that maybe in the political arena, can everybody be a leader at a certain? Can everybody be a pastor and lead people in that capacity? So everyone can be a leader, but in different capacities and in different scales, right? So because the question, the other way that I can phrase that is, can everyone have a mindset and responsibility as it's also then the possibility is there, but only because of the that we experience, because ours is normal. That is why certain have the habit of getting past that mindset. But generally speaking, yes, it is possible. We can all lead in different capacities and in different ways. Remember, speaking from the Christian standpoint here, the Bible says we were made for dominion. There is no way you can dominate without coming into leadership. There's no dominion without leadership. There's no rulership without leadership. So be it you're running a nonprofit, it's going to require for you to be a leader because you work with others. Be it you're running your own small business, it's going to require a certain level of leadership. Movement, it's going to require a certain level of leadership. In different capacities and in different ways, we can all lead.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. I believe he's having some technical challenges. Salua Muzmara here, that she talks about leadership and how we can all lead. But I think, from my understanding, he talked about positional leadership and how that is limited. How we all can't have positional leadership, because positional leadership is more of a structured kind of leadership system. Not everybody can be at the top. There has to be somebody at the top. But apart from that, we can all have a leadership mindset, which really is the best of leadership, which really is the best of leadership. So, in talking about a leadership mindset, Dua, how would the world look like if everybody had this leadership mindset? What would really change about our planet? Obviously, in a very hypothetical way. What would you say about this? How do you think the world would look like if everybody was exhibiting a leadership mindset?
More responsibility. If at least something we've been as legacy leaders, more responsibility. So if you take your stance as a leader, it means there is more action being taken place. So when the chips are down, when things are crumbling, there's more responsibility. Therefore, things can easily take action in the right direction because people are actually taking action and not sitting back to wait for the next person. So if leadership is responsibility and if it's a mindset, it's a personal thing, it means I'm not always waiting for Sandashi to tell me to talk to somebody about leadership or to tell me to execute when I feel that I need to lead. But it's through that particular encounters with people like Sandashi, with other leaders and phenomenal mindsets that build the leader in me to take charge on my own. And therefore, when things are in a position where they need a leader to speak, they need a leader to take action, it brings about a certain level of responsibility in myself. And just imagine if we had about every person and organization taking responsibility. It means every department is functioning to the max of its potential. There is a pedestal in every functioning department, and therefore it's not waiting for the CEO, it's not waiting for the managers, But even the as simple as the employees are able to take leadership actions even in spaces where it seems like it's too far-fetched from their position or capacity. But because they have the leadership mindset, they can do that even when the manager is not there. So I think it creates a vast and a huge level of responsibility in
Wow.
organizations at large.
Wow, 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 wow. And on a lighter note, in response to what you just shared, Lua, I hear in government workplaces, if you do what you said, you get fired. If you do take responsibility, you lose your job. If you try to do what the manager is supposed to do.
Oh no,
But
yeah, I get your point. But I
yeah,
think responsibility doesn't have to be taking the role of somebody else. If per se you're coming late for the chat room, and this is a perfect example. If you
yeah,
were supposed to anchor today's chat room, right, and you were
yeah,
coming late, I cannot wait for you to come on board, but I have to take charge in that particular instance. So that's what
yeah,
I mean by taking responsibility. It's not per se you're confusing or distorting the hierarchy of things,
yeah.
but you realize that if I don't take action here, something may deteriorate. And per se, if you've been following your leader and if you've been having a leadership mindset, even when he's not there, you're able to lead. So the best leaders are those who are able to create a group of followers that can act like them or even better when they're not there. So I feel that's
Wow.
what the mark of leadership should be.
Wow, I'm amazing. I'm amazing. That is so insightful. And in speaking of leadership, I think earlier you mentioned um, about a biblical based leadership approach, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Ndashi to share more on this. I know you specifically focus in on a spiritual or biblical model of leadership. But I'm also aware there are also other different models of leadership out there in the secular world as well. I just want to find out from you, how would you differentiate a biblical based leadership model from a secular based leadership model? And what is the significance of the biblical leadership model as opposed to the secular leadership model that we see today?
Okay, if I heard the question correctly, because I think it was cut in at some point, it is in, talking about those, the different model in terms of the biblical model and any other model that can have. My philosophy of ship and the model that I've seen in terms of scriptures. So for me, the philosophy of leadership, if I invite anybody to do anything with me, whatever vision that we begin to serve to contribute to that vision. So if you come to do anything with me, do should value to you and not fit for my team. Not because you are not good, but because I don't believe in using people. I believe philosophy funded use
Okay.
individual
Okay. So I believe Mr. Ndashite was having slight challenges with his network there. But Lua, maybe perhaps to clarify, since I know you're also part of the legacy leaders, and you share in the same philosophy of leading through a biblical model of leadership. Uh, how would you differentiate the biblical model of leadership from the secular model of leadership or any other model of leadership that exists out there? And what's the significance really of having a biblical leadership model towards life?
Okay. The biblical leadership model is basically centered around every believer. So every saint, everyone accepted in the kingdom and the beloved uh, of God's family has a responsibility of leadership. So the difference there is that in aside from the biblical setup, you are leading personally and you're building yourself personally for a later platform that may come. But when it comes to the aspect of biblical leadership, from the start, you're commissioned to be an evangelist. You're commissioned to go out and evangelize. So, which means you already have within you the capacity that is given to you by the Holy Spirit to go out and say something and bring somebody to the kingdom, which means there has to be a posture within you that is able to influence. So, we see the woman at the well who goes out and says, "Come and see a man who told me all that I ever did." So, there is an iteration there that comes from an encounter with Jesus. Just look at that in my physical away from the spiritual side of I need years and years of intellectual prowess and feeding on knowledge in order to lead on a certain platform. But when it comes to the biblical kind of leadership, the investment that is done is influenced by the Holy Spirit. It's influenced by God's anchoring upon my life. So even in an instant of an encounter with Jesus, I can go out and influence a culture, and influence a people, and influence a group. So that's what I feel marks the biblical kind of leadership. It's the fact that the process that's involved in me away from the biblical kind of leadership may take a little bit of time. But when it comes to my encounter with Jesus, I'm not saying you don't have to continuously learn leadership, but the Holy Spirit anchors you in a sense that it shortens or rather quickens the process to the point that we have a Samaritan woman leading people to Jesus by virtue of just one encounter. So I believe in the biblical side of things. Biblical leadership is based upon your encounter with the author of leadership in a sense.
Oh, wow, amazing, amazing. I have 1,000 of questions to ask based on what you said, and I'm trying to restrain myself due to time. Due to time. But thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing. Mr. Ndashi, we lost you there for a bit. Perhaps you can also just try to say what you were saying before you had a network issue. Okay, all right. So I believe perhaps he's still having a network challenge. All right. So moving forward tonight, we've been talking about leadership essentials, and we've been having such an insightful
Trying to highlight
conversation.
On what make you fishers of men. Okay.
You can go ahead, sir. Okay, all right. So he'll come in slightly later on. All right. So tonight we've been talking about leadership essentials, and to be more specific, we've been talking about what key leadership essentials are needed for today's world. And we've had such an insightful conversation, but unfortunately, we have to end right here tonight, and we want to check this off on a different date because I believe there's just so much to be explored when it comes to leadership. There's just so much to be learned, and as you can see, it's such a broad topic, and it's a topic for everybody because everybody can and must have a leadership mindset. So, Lua, even in conclusion tonight, I'd also like you to share your conclusion thoughts, and then we can end the chat room.
Have the desire to take responsibility. That's the only way you can improve your leadership mindset. Without a desire to take charge, to take action, to influence a culture, your hunger for leadership dies. So have a mindset to take responsibility over your life, and that will overflow into creating influence into other people's lives, and therefore creating a vast majority of people that take action, which is responsibility.
Wow, amazing. Building the leader in you, having that leadership mindset. So even as we conclude, I'd like to personally say that I believe in you, And I believe God made you to be a leader, and you can explore that leadership potential in you now. But you have to become intentional. You have to become engaged. As Sanda she mentioned earlier on, it must be sought after. You must want to learn more on how you can become a leader. And as you do that, you will discover more and more ways through which you can begin to influence yourself and the world as well. So thank you for tuning in on the chat room tonight. Thanks to all our friends who came through. We're grateful to our guest and Kapembwa for coming through and empowering you with this knowledge, and also to our ambassadors for sharing and empowering you with this broadcast. We are the chat room. We're looking for conversation that will change the world, and we're on every Sunday at this time. And looking forward to interacting with you next week Sunday. So thank you. We love you. On behalf of the chat room and our guests, enjoy your night and have a productive week.